Take a look at this civics polling on Black Lives Matter from April 25th, 2017 to May 10th, 2022. We can see net support in just after George Floyd was killed hit 23%. Then the rioting started. Jacob Blake got shot, and what happened? Polling dropped even more and went down to 8-9%, continued to fall. Derek Chauvin convicted. Support for Black Lives Matter went down again. Ahmaud Arbery verdict, and they once again dropped down to -1% net support. So you know what happens? Every time now, we've had these three big moments. Jacob Blake gets shot, approval drops. Derek Chauvin's convicted, approval drops. I think they're losing the narrative war. I think we're seeing the media companies falter. I think more people are starting to share shows like this, or other people are calling it out. I mean, you look at someone like Jimmy Dore, and there really is an economically bipartisan anti-establishment emergence. Because Jimmy's, a lefty guy, but he calls out the machine. He calls out the establishment, the authoritarianism. I think regular people, it's just fascinating. After Chauvin was convicted, support tanked massively. Over the course of a couple months, it went from 6% net support down to 2%.
Well, because if you remember, right before the verdict for Derek Chauvin, they had
riots.
There was the riot in Brooklyn Center, and that's the last riot I covered. It was April of 2021, and so again, now that was a bad case where an officer was trying to use a taser and accidentally shoots a guy, but. Again, what happened in that riot was people who had nothing to do with Kim Potter or Dante Wright had to suffer the negative consequences because people were crazy and going looting again. I mean, it goes back to the two wrongs don't make a right, and that's why I'm just against rioting.
I want to pull up this story from Como News. BLM co-founder admits she held parties at mansion with donor funds. Don't forget, folks, when you give money to Black Lives Matter, you are supporting
Marxists.
Parties. Parties at a mansion, baby. Yeah, come on.
It's Studio City.
You take a look at this polling, and right now, as of today, Civics says 44% opposition, 42% support. You can see that Black Lives Matter has gone underwater in the past month or so, and it's only getting worse. Well, there you go. When more stories like this come out, when you find out nobody knows who's in charge. Nobody knows where the money was going. They bought a big mansion, had a bunch of parties with your money. To everybody who watches this show, to everybody who watches shows like Steven Crowder's, or people who are calling out the lies from Black Lives Matter, their money's safe. They didn't make donations, but these regular people who don't pay attention, who are like, I'm going to make a donation, and then did. And all they did was fund a bunch of parties and a bunch of nonsense and a bunch of violence. I hope they're waking up to it now.
Like the Minnesota Freedom Fund. I mean, again,
right.
She wasn't the candidate then, but a senator, Kamala Harris, shared this bail fund because that was the current thing to do, and a lot of celebrities also advocated for it and donated to it. And what's even worse in my opinion with that case is that it's not even necessarily that the money was used to bail out actual rioters, but in the months since then, in the years since then, they've bailed out some pretty egregious people who should probably stay locked up. And yet they get released because they have all this influx of cash all of a sudden, thanks to people like Kamala Harris. And then probably one case was that they bailed out this guy. I forgot what the original charge was for, but he then went out and killed somebody in a road rage incident shortly thereafter. And the Minnesota Freedom Fund, they put out a statement saying, they confirmed that yes, our money was used to bail him out, and then they deleted it because I think they were getting too much backlash. So. This is the problem with supporting the current thing and the emotions running high is that you're right. People don't think through what's actually happening, because if you actually knew how peaceful protesters work and when they're actually arrested by police, a lot of times they just get written a ticket.
Right.
They don't need to get bailed out, but because someone wanted to do something and it looks good and we're going to virtue signal, and now people are dead.
I think it's these leftist organizations know what they're doing. I remember during Occupy Wall Street, there was the National Lawyers Guild, and they were helping people that I had witnessed be wrongfully arrested, and the cops lied. And so I was like, well, that's cool. They're like lawyers, and they observe to make sure, no BS from the cops. Okay. Then I saw them one day at a protest where there was a bunch of right-wing people wanted to have a protest, or they wanted to have a rally. So the left showed up to oppose that rally with violence. The National Lawyers Guild was on one side defending Antifa, and I saw them, and I was like, how come you guys are only observing one side? And they were like, what? And I'm like, shouldn't you be observing protests in general? Why are you just with them? There was a group of black-clad people wearing masks and sunglasses with crowbars and 2x4s and bats. And they were like, we're here to protect these protesters. And I'm like, the guys over there with shields are protesting. I don't understand why you're not protecting them. It's because these organizations don't exist to protect the right to protest. They exist to serve the revolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see those guys out there all the time, and they definitely are. And look, I'm not for police cracking down on people unjustly. It's just that in all the riots that I personally covered, it was always rioters making the first move and police responding in kind.
It's amazing watching the right try to protest and having no experience and no organizational power, and they think they can go up to these cops and say things. It's funny watching these videos, and you'll see these conservatives being like, yo, why are you arresting him? He didn't do anything. I don't understand. Like, what's going on? And it's like, wow, that's exactly what the leftists say. Like, these people thought they could show up and that the cops were going to treat them like, these guys support us, so we're going to be nice. Right, no. Then you see those videos where the people are throwing the Blue Lives Matter flag in the dirt and stomping on it in front of the cops because they finally realize, like, dude, those cops don't care about you, dude. You go out protest. That's why the left, they've been organizing for decades, and they have infrastructure and money behind them. So when they get arrested, they all get bailed out, even if they're the most crooked and evil people you ever heard of. And then, MAGA Mima shows up waving a little flag and now is in, solitary.
Yeah, it's not hard. If you think about the allegory, like the French Revolution, I'm reading a little bit about it. Like if they were like, and there were like sympathizers to the revolutionaries in the courts, and that some of the French revolutionaries were arrested and then released, you'd be reading about it. That is not even weird to me at all. I can totally see that happening as French Revolution. They infiltrated the courts. They're working together. So why is it so hard to believe that that's happening right now? It's not. It is happening. It seems to be happening right now.
I completely agree with you. I think people are in denial about the fact that the left has basically captured all of our most authoritative institutions.
Maybe not all, but some very, very, some at the crux.
Enough of them to get away with rioting, basically. Enough of them to literally burn down buildings and not face legal penalty.
They set fire to that church across from the White House, a historical church. And then the media and everyone just aligned against Trump over it.
This is how much institutional power the left has and has had. They were able to intimidate a sitting president of the United States into going into the bunker of the White House. And it was not criticized by the media. They were considered to be peaceful protesters.
They praised it.
Yeah, they laughed at him. And they laughed at Trump, right? They laughed at this. And then they accused the right of being insurrectionists.
And in that riot, there were 60 Secret Service officers who were badly injured. Around 60 Park police officers were also injured, and yet that's not viewed as an insurrection. And that's why with the whole January 6th discussion, I mean, for me, I view it as a riot. I mean, and I was against that because riots are not good. But it's just I don't care what anybody has to say about January 6th if they then look at what happened at the White House. And they were, because I mean that was also an attack against one of the branches of government. I mean, it's just I know we get into the whole double standard and hypocrisy, but it's important to point that out because when we're talking about the history of our country, that we have to remember where people stood when things were on other sides of the debate.
Yeah, well, I remember all throughout the summer of 2020 when the left was rioting, I was seeing hot takes from lefties who were saying things along the lines of, all the 2A conservatives who said they wanted to stand up to a tyrannical government are awfully silent right now, arguing basically, if anyone remembers, that conservatives should be laying down their lives for a left-wing insurrection. Then, all of a sudden, the left decides to start pretending that they're against insurrection, labeling January 6th an insurrection, which is a bizarre thing considering basically no one had weapons. We also know there was we're pretty sure based on the evidence, there was a lot of involvement from feds there. And the narrative was not what the media reported it as or has been claiming it was. But regardless, now they are once again in favor of insurrections, saying things like Lori Lightfoot, for example, stating this is a call to arms. We have left-wing political leaders saying we gotta fight.
What?
We need revolution, etc.
She called for arms and fighting.
She said this is a call to arms.
Call to arms.
We need to fight to victory.
That's calling for weaponry.
Yes,
call to
and
arms.
Alex Jones got banned for basically the same thing.
And Chicago has plenty of them.
Ain't that the truth?
The government was set up so that we don't have to go to another revolution if we do it right. Although Thomas Jefferson made it very plain that we may have to, and that you don't never do it but we shouldn't have to.
We had a civil war, bro.
Also, well, I want to mention this. I think what they were talking about was more a revolt than a revolution. So a revolution is when you try to like completely overturn the social order to build something new, whereas a revolt is when you're trying to fight back against something being arguably imposed upon you.
So you think this is more of a revolt?
I think this is more of a revolution.
I
would
just
argue
don't
that
see
what's
what they
happening.
want.
I would argue that it's a leftist revolution, right? They want to create a new social order. Like they don't even think that we should recognize the differences between boys and girls. That's how bizarre and strange the new order that they seek to establish.
A cultural revolution.
Yeah,
what
a complete cultural and political revolution. Yeah, they just want to overturn everything.
I mean, the far left protesters in Los Angeles, they were calling for the Supreme Court to be abolished, which is also funny because if that happens, you do realize then abortion goes to the state. That's the whole reason why we're in this position in the first place.
Remember when they were calling to abolish the Senate?
Yeah, I mean they're abolishing left and right.
I mean, I'm open to change and revolution.
I don't know. A lot of anarchists and libertarians probably like, yeah, abolish the Senate.
For a while, I thought we should get rid of the House of Representatives because they're getting bribed. I'm like, we need it, but I don't just want to get rid of it. You got to create something better if you're going to change it.
You gotta replace it.
Like the founding fathers didn't just fight and kill a bunch of people and then be like, what do we do now? Like they had a plan. They had a bunch of paperwork. They've been debating for years and years together.
And when it didn't work with the Articles of Confederation, they replaced it with something else, and what we have today. I mean, it's really, I mean, especially with the Antifa people and those guys, they yes, they are a threat, and like especially if they're motivated in specific areas like the Pacific Northwest, but they also just hype themselves up too much. They spray paint ACAB on the side of a wall, and they jerk themselves off on social media by saying, look how awesome this is. This is a revolution. It's like, you guys just spray painted a wall. Big whoop. And then when it gets below 40 degrees, they stay home.
It strikes me more that it's just a revolt, a headless revolt.
This is from October. It's not even that long ago. Abolish the Senate. Yo, these people are just like, we've lost control of a body of power. Abolish it.
Yeah,
like, okay.
And again, it's the temper tantrum that leftists have. If we don't get what we want it to go away, or we'll take it, or we'll influence it through violence.
I wish they thought of it more as a boat we're all on, that they don't like how fast it's going, so they want to burn the boat as we're all on it and like sink it. Like no, we got to fix the boat.
I wish that Republicans felt that way too.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
So if you are on a boat and there are people who are destroying it with pickaxes, you stop them from doing it.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.